You're listening to Bloomberg Businessweek with Massar and Tim Stenovec on Bloomberg Radio.
Hey, there's something you should know about our next guest, the journalist and author Bianca Bosker. When she commits to something, she goes all in. For her New York Times bestseller, Cork Dork, she burrowed deep in the obsessive world of sommeliers. You know, those are the people who lick rocks and avoid brushing their teeth in the morning to preserve their taste buds for the wine.
It's a little crazy, but for a glass of wine, I'm in it.
Okay. This time, though, it's the art world. In her new book, she infiltrates the world of art obsessives. They're the people who hyperventilate around their favorite colors or break out in hives if you ask them to explain their work. We've got with us Bianca Bosker. Her new book is Get the Picture, a mind-bending journey among the inspired artists and obsessive art fiends who taught me how to see. It comes out this week. She's here in the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. Bianca, welcome. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, congratulations on the book. Several years in the making. So in the book, you work in a gallery, you work as a gallery assistant, you're a museum security guard, you go to A-list parties with billionaires, you did mushrooms upstate with artists.
I had my face sat on by a nearly naked stranger in the name of art.
Okay,
all in a day's work, right?
Yeah.
So give us the origin story here. I mean, why go into the art world?
Yeah, well, I mean, for a long time, candidly, art and I were not really on speaking terms. I don't know, perhaps some of you can relate, but going to galleries and museums reliably made me feel like I was, 2 tattoos and a master's degree away from figuring out what was going on. But I began to have this kind of just consumed with this fear that by turning my back on art, I was missing out on something big. And so I started poking around the art world and I couldn't look away. The art admittedly still befuddled me, but the people fascinated me. I mean, they had, I've never met a group of people willing to sacrifice so much for something of so little obvious practical value. Artists who treated 100-year-old paintings like they were as necessary as vital organs. And I was surprised that scientists are right there with artists and saying that art is a fundamental part of our humanity. Per one biologist, it is as necessary to us as food or sex. And I became consumed with, why do we look at art? What does it do for us? And also these art fiends, they acted like they'd accessed this trap door in their brains, and it made my own life feel very claustrophobic compared to their expansive existence.
How easy or difficult was it to penetrate?
Extremely difficult. I'm a journalist. I do interviews, I do research reports, but I also believe in learning by doing. And so I had this plan that I was going to go work in the art world. Unfortunately, basically no one except me thought this was a good idea. I felt like an FBI agent trying to infiltrate the mob. It was, I got warnings, I got threats. And it was
gallerists didn't just all open up the doors to you?
They did not know. They did not. Nor did artists. But I was surprised. I thought that the art world, it kind of advertises itself as this, group of open-minded iconoclasts who want to embrace as many people in their warm hug of art. And I was surprised. I think that there is a mean streak to the art world that is by design. There's a hidden logic to the way they try and keep people out.
Well, that's one thing that surprised me throughout the book is the way that, I kept thinking to myself, I thought this was supposed to be a business, but they're not making it easy for people to actually give them money for art. I mean, you talk to some galleries.
In fact, I think they make it incredibly difficult.
Well, some galleries you say don't want to be on the don't want walk-in traffic.
Right.
They
well,
don't want people
excuse me.
coming off
It
the
is
street.
technically random ass people walking. And
I've been one of those.
But what's the deal with that? I mean, they don't show the prices. They're if somebody gives them money, maybe they won't even sell it to them.
Totally, absolutely. Well, look, I think it works on a number of levels. But as I started writing press releases and spackling walls and schmoozing millionaires to sell them art when I was working for galleries, I began to become initiated into this sort of hidden logic of the way this strategic snobbery works to keep people out. And you're right, it's everything from where you put a gallery. A lot of these galleries are located less like stores than speakeasies, up a flight of stairs in a building that could just as easily house apartments with maybe, a business card-sized plaque outside that probably omits helpful words like art or gallery. They discuss this art in this made-up language of art speak, where, the bigger the words, the better. And then, of course, there's, this, while you're judging the art, the gallerist is judging you. And so, galleries, which is art speak for stores, often don't post their prices. And so to find out what things cost, right, you're going to have to ask someone who will tell you, but probably only after you take a schmo detector test. And so, they want to know, how did you make your money? What do you do for a living? What else do you own? And, this works to do a number of things. I think part of it is building mystique. Part of it also works to concentrate power in the hands of gatekeepers. Part of it also keeps the art world this exclusive purview of the elite few and this sort of self-anointed few.
Do you like it after you came out?
I think that to me, ultimately, look, I think like any industry, the art world has its problems, but I think of the book as a love story. You know, and when I write, I'm a nonfiction writer. I don't know where these things will end, but it wasn't really until I started working as a studio assistant to up-and-coming artists that my whole relationship with art changed. I feel like I finally learned how to develop my eye, to see it, to cut through the sort of the swirl of context and social capital that often surrounds art.
Were starving artists nicer than accomplished artists?
No, I think artists are part of this sort of rebel alliance that believes that art, even cutting edge art, is for everyone, that it isn't a luxury, it's a necessity, and that everything that you need to have a meaningful experience of art is right in front of you. But yeah, no, I think...
were they nicer to you?
I was lucky. I ended up finding people who were very, very nice to me and regardless, even when people were showing me tough love, I learned so much, even when, I had someone telling me like, that I needed a makeover, right? That I needed, severe haircut, no jewelry, right? Like that I wasn't the coolest cat in the art world, so I was bringing down his coolness. That is a way. I mean, unfortunately, if you want to sort of become in parts of the art world to get inside, you have to behave like an insider, and I'm not endorsing that, but
it's like the devil paints Prada, right? It's like your version of it. It's like really crazy. It's interesting though.
Do you think that somebody can actually be taught what to appreciate when it comes to this stuff versus being born with it, as some people who you quote in the book say?
Yeah, I don't think it's even being taught to. I think it's, learning yourself, if that makes sense. I think there's a difference, right? So one thing that really stuck with me was that these artists that I was meeting and these art fiends, they pitied me. They said I lacked visual literacy, which they said was basically a liability in an age so saturated with images. And I needed to develop my eye. And eye, in this sense, is this kind of cultivated outlook that enables you to see a lot that doesn't meet the eye. Like who's going to be the next Picasso, or what's transcendent about a sculpture of limp vegetables on a stained mattress. And what I really found is that artists, it was working in their studios where I began to understand how to savor art like an artist. It meant slowing down, examining the physical form, paying attention to the decisions that an artist made. I think that oftentimes I was really surprised by how many art experts spent surprisingly little time discussing the merits of artworks themselves. Instead, they asked, who else? Where did this artist go to school? Who else has shown this artist? Who are they sleeping with? All these questions that refer to the so-called context, the social capital, informed people's opinion of a work. But going back to developing your eye, I mean, that's something that starts with you. It's developing your own taste, and I think again, it means slowing down, looking at a lot of work, going beyond masterpieces, and seeing surprising, unexpected work in basements, in art schools.
It's kind of cool, homes. Right? Like kind of the world of discovery. I mean, it's just kind of very cool.
And everything changes.
And it's not a world that we all get a kind of snapshot into at all, right? Or get to peek into.
Right. Well, because oftentimes they'd prefer you wouldn't.
That's fair.
So do you feel our world needs to become more accessible?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think on so many different levels. I think that there's this sort of myth of the scarcity of genius that pervades in the art world. And I think that contributes to the system where, it's a winner-take-all model. You have a small number of names, that get traded back and forth for ever-increasing sums of money. And in my opinion, genius is not in short supply. Beauty is not in short supply. And beauty, by the way, is not as bad. I think it's, for a lot of people in the art world, it's their sworn enemy. But I came to think that, there's the process by which an artist, I was very interested in how does art go from being the germ of an idea in someone's studio to this masterpiece we ooh and ah over at a museum. Because I think all the decisions that shape an artwork are the decisions that also shape us.
Let's get back to Bianca Bosker. She's got her new book out, came out yesterday. It's called Get the Picture, a mind-bending journey among the inspired artists and obsessive art fiends who taught me how to see. In the book, she goes to A-list parties with billionaires. She works as a gallery assistant, a museum security guard. You participated in art.
Wait. I want to know that. Go ahead.
She kind of, I don't know if it was during a break that you said it, but you can talk about it. It's do the safe for work version.
Yeah, right.
Of what you did for the book.
I let a nearly naked stranger sit on my face in the name of art.
Was it artistic?
It was artistic. It was fascinating. It was, this performance artist, Mandy Allfire, who, similar to me, has a very immersive process. And so she has, an incredibly impressive resume. When I met her, she had been spending a number of years doing a performance as a butt influencer on Instagram.
I love it.
And so
gotta love America, man.
But she had hundreds of thousands of followers, and she at a gallery hosted this live face sitting where she invited her fans to come and be sat on until they couldn't take it anymore. And somehow I ended up participating. But really, it was, to me, her work just stuck with me because it raised so many questions about what is art, right? How do we recognize it? What is good art? And so I ended up actually working as her assistant and spending a lot of time with her tackling these really thorny questions.
I agree. Anytime you walk through a modern museum, and sometimes I'm like, kind of love that chair just sitting in the middle of the room doing nothing. Or sometimes I'm like, yes. Or sometimes I'm like I think about 60 Minutes for years has done pieces of like, that's art.
Right.
Like it's interesting.
Or
but sometimes you sit there and you're like, I kind of get it. Like, it's interesting.
But there's the other side of that, which especially I think with someone like Cy Twombly, for example, right? Like the whole classic, okay, that looks like a sketch that my kid just did.
Right.
To you, does it look like that?
Right. It depends. I think there's certain Cy Twomblys that still do, but there's, I think that, to me, I came to think that art is sort of this handshake between it's you as a viewer also kind of agreeing to pick up what an artist is putting down. But I also think, this experience completely changed where I see art. And Mandy, this artist as well. I mean, she argues that someone like Kim Kardashian is an artist. And we can have a longer conversation about that. But, nonetheless, I think that for me, this was a journey to develop my eye. And that it started with a real curiosity for seeing more in art. But I see the whole world differently now. And I think that, art, it's interesting. Like there's this idea that it is a luxury, but when you look at sort of the way that it's been a part of us for so long, it's, we invented paint before we learned how to heal bloody wounds. And I think that art ultimately, it is this thing that helps us fight the reducing tendencies of our minds. Right?
So what did you like better? Getting a peek into the art industry or the wine tasting industry or the wine industry?
It's so hard to compare. It's like asking to pick a favorite child, Yeah. But I would say that the art world has really, it transforms the way, it's just transformed the way I walk down the street. One of my favorite things about going to a museum is actually when I leave and I start seeing art everywhere. I see art, in a hot dog cart, right? It's like, and I think that's this way that art helps our minds jump the curb. It introduces this glitch that is a gift, that helps us break out of our well-worn pathways.
Which is kind of a good thing in this environment because sometimes we need to do it because the world is stressful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bianca, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
The new book is Get the Picture, a mind-bending journey among the inspired artists and obsessive art fiends who taught me how to see. Bianca Bosker in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio.